Hi team, welcome to Cloud Pandit. So in this Azure Data Factory Master Program video series, so in today's session we will talk about create Azure Data Factory step by step using the Databricks. So I'll show you how we can able to create the Azure Data Factory using the Databricks Python notebooks. Okay, let's get started. So before we go and create the Azure Data Factory, we need to know few things, prerequisite in order to create the Azure Data Factory. So already I have explained in detail about all these prerequisites in the previous session. If you want to in detail explanation, I request you to go and watch my previous session. So I quickly discuss about these prerequisites. So first thing is subscription. So Azure subscription is an agreement with the Microsoft that grants access to their cloud platform and try to building accounts. So basically, they will allow us to access all their cloud services if we have the active subscription, and whatever services that we are using for the charges that are applicable charges will be deducted from this subscription. So resource group basically a logical container that helps to organize and manage the related Azure resources together. So for example, if we are traveling to a let's say Kashmir, right? So there are a group of people who are traveling. So what you will do, you will just create a WhatsApp group to manage them at a one place. If anybody wants to share some common message, they can able to share, right? Similar to that, we can have the resource group, which basically a place where we can manage all the relevant resources. For example, all the development resources will create in the dev resource group, all the UAT resources will create in the UAT resource group, all the production resources will create in the production resource group. Just it is a logical container to maintain them. If you want to delete all these resources, we can just delete the resource group. That will delete all the resources. You will see the practicals. Once you start looking at the practical, you will not have any of these doubts. Next, data factory name. Remember, so data factory name is globally unique. So unique name we need to give for the data factory, and the names are case insensitive. That is MyDF and MyDF refer to the same data factory both. Okay. Finally, region. So Azure region is a geographical location where Microsoft data centers are situated. Okay. So physical locations are available. So now, in order to create ADF with the Python, right? So the first thing we need to understand is the step one is we need to install the modules. These three modules we need. First, Azure Data Identity is the module which we will be using to authenticate our Python script with the Azure account in order to create the Azure Data Factory. Next, Azure Management Resource, which is basically used to create the resource group. Azure Management Data Factory, which is used for creating the data factory. Okay, so these three we need. I want to create a resource group, I want to create a data factory. In order to create these two, I want to identify. So that's why I need a Azure data identity to identify our uh, Python script is a valid script. It has the permission to create data factory. To identify that particular thing, I need a Azure data identity module, then Azure data management resource for creating the resource group, Azure management data factory for creating the data factory. Create app registration. So in order to, so generally, let's say if I join a project, they will give the access to me, right? So I can use my username and password to log in. Tomorrow, if I leave the organization, so what will happen? So my username and password will be invalid because my username will be deactivated. So, but applications should keep running, right? So this particular data brick should keep accessing the data factory. For that, we need a active username and password permanently, irrespective of who is leaving the organization, who is staying here, right? In order to do that, if any two Azure services wants to interact, we are going to create an app registration within the Azure Active Directory. Azure Active Directory is the head of our Azure services. So how humans will be controlled with the thoughts of the brain. Similarly, Azure Active Directory will be controlling all the Azure services, right? So within the Azure Active Directory, we are going to create app registration. App registration will generate username and password. For this particular app registration, we will give the required permissions to the subscription so that this app registration has the permission to use that subscription in order to create a resource group, in order to create a data factory, in order to create anything, right? So that's why first what we will do, we will install modules. Second step is we will create an app registration. Third step is we will add this app registration as a contributor access role in the subscription. Contributor access role in the subscription we will add. And finally, I have created a one function, Python function. We just have to call that particular function to create the Azure Data Factory. This is the function code that I have kept it. You just have to, I'll be keeping this particular code in the description. So you can even take this particular code. You just call this particular code. It will create the data factory. No need to use even the Databricks. You can also do it in the local Python. Okay, let's quickly look into this, how we can able to do. So first thing is, in order to do this, we need a Databricks community. But you don't know how to log in into the Databricks community because maybe you have not created. So Databricks community is completely free. You no need to make any payment. Getting, so Databricks is completely free. You no need to make any payment. So what you need to do is, I'll tell you. So once you log in with username and password, here if you go here, you will create a Spark cluster. Basically, okay, create compute. So here I am giving some name of the cluster is demo, and the default, the cluster one computer, one node I am taking a driver node with the 15.3 GB memory, 2 cores. We no need to discuss these all things. These we will discuss as part of the Databricks course. Okay. So just create the cluster, which is basically our computer to run our code. Okay, we need an environment to run our code, right? This is the code compute that I created. Now what we need to do is we need to create the notebook. Click here, click notebook. So I just clicked on create and create a notebook. It created. Here I'll say create ADF. Okay, create ADF is the notebook name I am giving, create ADF. So from here I want to create the Azure Data Factory. So first thing is, before I go and explain everything, I want to just show you how to create this Databricks community. If you go to my YouTube channel and if you search here, right, if you search here, Cloud Pandit plus Databricks community creation, and see here how to create Databricks community Azure Databricks, right? So this particular video link I'll be keeping in the this particular video description. I request you to go and watch this first. So try to create the Databricks community. Once you create Databricks community, so you can go here, compute, just give the name and click create. Then you create the notebook and give the name for your data, this particular Databricks notebook. Now cluster is creating. Once the compute is ready, then we can able to use this. Meantime, I already have the code here. I'll just get that particular code for you immediately. Okay. So let me check. So I'm just bringing my code and I'm keeping here. Okay, so the step one is what we need to install the required module. I'll tell you how to install the required module. So these are the three modules we need: Azure.identity, Azure.management.resource, Azure.management.data factory. So on the data factory itself, they are accessing the models. So this date time, these are basically by default available. You no need to install. These are just a time, date time, these all modules will be available by default. You don't need to specially install it. So let's go and install these things. Okay, so step one is, step one, install modules. I also explained to you Azure.identity for identification purpose, for authentication purpose. management.resource for creating the resource group, management.data factory for creating the data factory. I told you. Okay, there are some questions also, multiple choice questions I'll be asking you. Remember, a lot of questions will be there on top of this. So we will go and create one by one all of these things. Okay, so what I will do, I'll just come here, I'll put these things. So in order to create a module, right, module will look like this. Okay, module will look like this. So we need to install these things. Okay, Azure identity. Now what you need to do, you need to go to again compute. In Databricks, how to install module, you see, click on this particular cluster. Now go to libraries. Okay, so here click install new. Here you can see PyP. You put this particular PyP is basically a Python a module, so which basically allows to install the packages. Okay, so PyP also basically pip also you need to install it. Okay, so Python. Okay, so just give the package name. You make sure that you are using the PyP. Okay, it is a pip command basically. It is also we need to install if it is not there, but this Databricks community will be there by default. Click install. Similarly, let's get the second one, Azure management resource, install new, IP again. You put these things here. The third one is, if you're not installing libraries, what will happen? You will not able to succeed even the step one also. The very important, you must have to install all these three modules I install. So now you come here, go to create ADF. In this create ADF, so the cluster is coming up. Once the cluster is available, you need to run this notebook. The shortcut to run this notebook is Control Enter or Shift Enter. Otherwise, if you want to run this particular cell from the UI, you can say Run Cell. So, but what it is saying, setting up one node, meaning one computer, it is bringing for us to run this code. It takes generally 3-4 minutes to set up this particular cluster. Okay, meantime I'll just explain to you what and all we need to do. So first thing is we are install the modules. See, it installed, it kept the node ready, and now it is starting this Spark means Spark session. Which notebook it is, you can see notebook of type Python. So in Databricks you can write the different types of notebooks. So this is a Python notebook, you can see. Okay, now so as we discussed the prerequisite, right, you need to give the all the details. So you need to give me the subscription ID. Okay, what is the subscription ID? You need to give me. Next you need to give me the resource group name. What is the resource group name that you want to create? Next, data factory name. What is the data factory name? You need to give. Region, in which location you want to create, you need to give that location as well. Next, you need to have a client ID. Client ID means, as I mentioned, app registration will get the required permissions from the subscription. Hey, subscription, I want to create a Azure Data Factory by using your subscription ID. Can I create? So yes, I'll add the this particular app registration, whatever I created, that I'll add it in the subscription with the contributor access. So that subscription will give the permission to create the Azure Data Factory, and we can use the tab registration, client ID, secret value, or tenant ID. Using these three, we can authenticate with the subscription. So subscription will allow us to do anything. Then we will use this particular RG name, resource group name, and subscription ID to create the resource group. Then we will use this resource group, this particular data factory name and region to create the data factory. So we will see, but these 6 parameter values we need to get it. I'll show you how to get it. First, you see step 1, we are doing this, right? Okay. So if you think it is keep showing waiting to run, what is the quick thing that you can do is click on this detach and reattach, meaning you remove the compute from the notebook and reattach again. Detach and reattach means again it will be attached. Now again run it. So let's see now. Okay, this is running command. See, it is not throwing any errors for us. If you're not doing properly, if you're not installed properly, it will throw error. Okay, so I'm not seeing any error. Fine. Now I'll go into my Azure account. Okay, portal.azure.com. Go into Cloud Pandit ms@outlook.com. Step 2 is what? As per our discussion, step 2 is create app registration. Okay, let's go and create app registration. Very simple. Click on this. Go to Azure Active Directory as I mentioned. In the Azure Active Directory, if you come down, you see something called app registration. Okay, go to app registration, and now you need to click new registration. Okay, now you can say my first registration. Okay, my first registration, just click create. Okay, when you create, so this is basically generated this. See, client ID or application ID, this is the ID. Okay, you can copy this, you can put this here. Next, come here, this is what? Directory ID or tenant ID. Copy this, keep this tenant ID. How about the password of this particular app registration? Certificates and secrets. Here we need to click new client secrets to generate a password. See, certificate and secret, new client secret. You can just give some description and how many days it should be active. If you want to set some custom dates or 180 days, okay, something you can set it. Okay, it is recommended to reset the password for every 3-6 months. Okay, so this is a password. So password we generally store it in the key vault, but for now, as these are very basic sessions, I am starting here. So in going forward, we will see the best practices, how to store all these credentials and so on. Okay, now app related everything we got it. Let's say you have all these things, but how you will authenticate? You cannot go and simply using this credential, you can't create anything. So first, this app should have the permission to the subscription. So what I'll do, I'll search for subscription here, go to subscriptions, click on the free trial subscription that you have or that I have, go to access control IAM, click add role assignment. You can search for contributor. I think it should be there in the privileged administration role. Contributor, select this contributor, click next, select member to whom you want to give this my first registration. Okay, so for this particular app I am giving the contributor access. So this is our third step. This is our what? Our third step. You check it. So the third step is add contributor role in the subscription is done. The fourth step is we need to call this particular function. Before you call, okay, before you call, you go to the subscription. If you see the subscription ID is this, copy the subscription ID, you put it here. Okay. Now, resource group name, right? I'll say Cloud Pandit. Okay, Cloud Pandit RG 2023 research group in 2023. Okay, data factory name, I'll say Cloud Pandit ADF version 2 0108. Okay, today date and today month. Region, so in which location you want to create it is, I want to create it in east to west. I want to create it in east to west. So I have given all these details. Once you have all these details, so this is the function. So what this function does, the client secret credentials. First, if you see client secret credentials, using this particular client secret credentials, client ID, client secret tenant, we are authenticating, we are getting the credentials. Using these credentials, okay, we are passing the subscription ID to get a resource client. Resource client is basically for the creating the resource group. ADF client is to create the ADF. So we are getting the required permissions. How we are getting? Resource management client is using these credentials and checking with the subscription ID. So this particular credentials has the permissions to access the subscription, getting the resource client. Similarly, same credentials as the access to the subscription to create a data factory. So the ADF client we are getting. So now I created the resource group in which location, data factory in which location. I set up this as a dictionary. This is a Python dictionary. Now resource client dot resource group dot create or update. See, resource client we are using to create a resource group, create or update. If it is already available, you update it, something like that. I am saying resource group name I am passing here. Resource RG param means the location. Similarly, for data factory also, if you see, right, so we are using the RG name, okay, resource group name, data factory name, DF resource means whatever data factory location that we wanted to choose, that particular location I'm passing. Now this is just a function. This function will not do anything. You need to call this function by passing required parameters. So how you will be passing is, you can just see same parameters I have used. Okay, now I can call because the subscription ID nothing but this one. So maybe I can just move this cell down. Okay, move this cell down. Now you see this is the modules we install. This is the function. These are the variables that I'm setting, and these all variables I'm passing to this function and calling this function. Before I call this, I wanted to show you we don't have any go to resource group. Do you have any resource group here? Do you have any resource group? No, right? Now you see, so now you can see, now I am executing this particular function I'm calling. I called that particular above function. This function I called, what it does, so it completed successfully. Now if you see, very soon we will see one resource group because the deployment is started. We initiated the deployment. It takes some time to come up here, but our function is done. Whatever job it's supposed to do, it has done. See, Cloud Pandit -RG 2023 resource group it has created. Under that, Cloud Pandit ADF V20108 is the resource group it has data factory it has created. Okay. So in order to create multiple hundreds of data factories, if you want to create, instead of creating manually through the user interface, in real time, what we can do, we can just use the PowerShell scripts or Python scripts in order to automate everything. So hundreds of data factory names with respect to the resource group names you store in a configuration file, and you just call this particular function with a different resource group names and the different regions with the different data factory names. It will create hundreds of data factory, it is going to create. Clear all of you? Okay, for example, we will quickly see, let's say I have a requirement like this. Okay, so for me the requirement is something like this, you can think of. Okay, so the other things are same, only thing that is going to keep changing is the resource group. Okay, let's say Cloud Pandit dev-rg. In this dev-rg, I want to create a Cloud Pandit dev ADF 0108. Okay, for example, I am showing you. Okay, next there is a requirement Cloud Pandit dev sales RG, sales related. Okay, ADF dev ADF, right? So dev sales, something like that. So you can have as many as you want. Now what I'm doing for in d dot items, so it will give me the resource group or resource group and ADF name. So both it will give me that I can able to print it and show you. First resource group comma ADF. Okay, first you can just leave that, execute this. So what is happening? RG is not there. So you can say, so this is the RG name. Okay, if you want to maintain some space in between, so maybe colon something like this, let me put the colon or something. See, so this is the resource group, this is a data factory, this is the resource group, this is a data factory. Now what I can do, instead of printing just like this, I can call this function So resource group name, I'll keep passing different resource group name, and ADF name also I'll keep passing the different ADF. If you have a different regions that you want to pass, you can get the third parameter as well. Okay, now you just run this. Now you see this in this particular resource group, this data factory will create. In this resource group, this data factory will create. Like that, hundreds of data factories or resource group we can able to create with the help of these scripts. So now you will see very quickly. So I'm not doing anything through the UI. If we need to do, see dev sales RG, dev -RG, under dev -RG you can see those things. So dev ADF 0108 sales means dev sales. See dev sales ADF 0108, right? So these all things we need to take care. Clear all of you? I hope everybody understood this. So we will see next how to create the same thing in the PowerShell. So using the PowerShell, how we can able to create this particular Azure Data Factory, we will see. Okay, that's all for today, team. If you have any questions, you can post it your questions in the comment section. I'll answer all of your questions. I request all of you to subscribe my YouTube channel and support me and encourage me to do more videos on Azure Data Factory Databricks. Thank you so much for your support, team. Thank you. Okay, so now we will see the questions, multiple choice questions that we have just discussed. So first question is, what Python module is required to create an Azure Data Factory? As I discussed, Azure Management Data Factory. What role does the app registration need to be assigned to the Azure subscription to create a data factory? Contributor. And which Python package is used to authenticate with Azure using a client secret? So authentication wise, Azure.identity, I told you. Okay, which Python SDK package is used to interact with Azure resources and manage resource groups? Azure.manage.resource will help to interact with Azure resources and manage resource groups. Which parameters are required to call the create underscore new underscore ADF function successfully? Subscription ID, RG name, data factory name, region, client ID, client secret, tenant ID, both A and B. So all the parameters we need both A and B. So what is the significance of client ID, client secret, tenant ID parameters in the create new ADF function? They are used to specify, or they are used to define the credentials for Azure authentication. Yes, the correct answer is 2. They are used to define the credentials for Azure authentication. Okay, they are used to specify subscription ID for Azure. They are used to specify region for the specific location. No, the right answer is B. They are used to define the credentials for Azure authentication. Okay, that's all questions that I have. So I request all of you to post your questions, anything you have in the comment section. Thank you.